Hey guys, welcome back and Happy New Year. It is now 2021, so we can only hope that this year is going to be better than last year. I do want to go ahead and say that I did meet my reading goal for last year. My goal is to read 200 books, and I exceeded that by a lot. I think I probably have quarantine to thank for that, but I was able to do it, and this year I'm going to reset my goal at 200 with the hope that I will not be at home as much. Fingers crossed there. So if I'm not at home as much, I won't just be sitting at home reading, but that's beside the point. So we are actually starting out 2021 with a 5-star read. I read The Pale-Faced Lie by David Crow, and it was a 5-star read for me. I was a little bit surprised, so I went into this book thinking that I read the synopsis wrong, honestly is what happened. And for some reason, I thought that this man was being forced to murder people by his father. So because of that, that's what I thought the book was. And that's not what the book was. It is about a man, David Crow, who was forced to do criminal things by his father and also encouraged to do criminal things by his father, not murder. So I was a little bit confused, but I ended up really enjoying this book. And I think enjoying is kind of a weird word to say for this book, and you're going to understand that once I get into the synopsis. But I couldn't stop reading it. It was very compelling, I guess is a better word. The book was extremely compelling. So we start out when David Crow is only 3 years old. So he has kind of compiled all of these memories from different family members, from his own memories, and from everything like that. So it's 3 years old, and he's starting out, and then we kind of go up basically his entire life. So he grew up on Native American reservations in the Southwest. So I'm talking Arizona and New Mexico, I think. His father said that they were full-blooded Cherokee, but they were the pale kind of Cherokee. And that kind of plays a large part in the story. But they spent a lot of time working on the reservations. And they also would live near different reservations. So David had an extremely terrible home life. His mother was extremely mentally ill to the point that she could not care for her children, and his father was abusive. So he was the second child of 4. So he had an older sister, and then him, and then there was a younger brother and an even younger sister. And he kind of got drug around with his father a lot, and his father encouraged really bad behavior, like breaking into things, breaking things, destroying things, whatever. As long as you weren't getting caught by the police, his father was encouraging that. And his basis for that was, we're Cherokee, these laws don't apply to us. So as he gets older, his father keeps telling him, we need to get rid of your mother. And he's afraid that his mother is going to be killed, and he does love his mother. The other kids are kind of ambivalent, and while I was reading this at first, I was just this is, how do you think like that? Clearly it's their trauma. They are thinking that way because they're very traumatized by the situation that they're in. So eventually, the dad and 4 children end up leaving their mother, and they move to a Navajo reservation at Fort, I want to say it's at Fort Defiance. They moved to quite a few reservations. But he's bullied quite heavily at this reservation until he kind of is able to earn the respect of those people, and he grows to love living with the Navajo and loving the Navajo reservation. Eventually, his dad remarries, and the stepmother is extremely strict and also abusive. So it's a miracle that these children are surviving. They end up moving to Maryland, and they stay out there. He desperately wants to move back to the reservation, but they end up staying in Maryland. And he barely graduates high school. He doesn't care. But it's once he graduates high school, I think that everything kind of comes in for him. He basically walks into a community college, and he's like, I have a diploma from this county. You have to let me in. And it works. They do let him in. He starts to get interested in politics and everything. He goes to, I think, Maryland State. He joins a fraternity. He makes friends, and he starts to have a life outside of his family. And that's so important because it helps him to realize just how messed up everything in his family was. And then he decides he wants to work in politics. Well, his dad ends up getting this random job with a senator. He meets the senator and gets a job. And I'm kind of how do you just meet someone and they just give you a job in Washington, D.C. on their Senate committee? But beside the point. So he ends up working his way from the bottom up and he ends up on like the agricultural committee. And that's where he sort of starts to decide this is what he wants to do. But of course, his dad isn't just going to let him walk away. And he is trying to beat his dad at his own game. And it gets like very thrillerish right there. It's very quick, very thrillerish. And then eventually he wins. And now David Crow owns a lobbying firm, or like a lobbyist firm, which like I know what a lobbyist is. I didn't know there were firms for some reason. I expected them to just be like one person like doing it for other people, but whatever. So he owns like a lobbyist firm. He's quite successful, and he still does that today. So he's quite successful. He managed to kind of escape that situation that he was in, and so did all of his siblings. So his older and younger sisters are teachers. His older sister is actually a professor at a university, and his younger brother worked in the medical field and was in the military. So they were all able to like overcome this like big issue of their life, basically. But a big part of like his identity was that he thought he was Cherokee. But come to find out, his dad made that up completely. They were not Cherokee at all. That's actually a very common thing that happens, I want to say in the southeast area, but it probably happens like nationwide, is that people claim Cherokee heritage even if they don't have it. I'm definitely not trying to say that if you have Cherokee in your family that's not real. I'm just saying that a lot of people will claim Cherokee heritage. So for him, that was this like huge thing. He didn't know what his identity was. He didn't know who he was, because he had grown up thinking like, I'm Cherokee, that's who I am. So we deal with the trauma of his home life all through his childhood, also his like identity crisis and him trying to figure out who he wants to be and what he wants to do. But all at the same time, his dad was literally like killing people, and he was like stealing from the federal government. He would go to these big warehouses on the reservations and just steal stuff and like resell it. And he was encouraging them to basically break the law consistently, to just not get caught. And it's so nice to see that these people were able to rise above all of that and kind of become really contributing members of society. He was never really hateful about either of his parents either. He just kind of told the story. It read almost like fiction. It was extremely like intriguing. Like he wanted to keep reading because he wanted to see what happened. And I found that really good. I wasn't sure what I was going to rate this. I was thinking probably 3 to 4 stars. I ended up giving it 5 stars because I did not want to put it down. Once I started reading it, I was sold. I didn't want to put it down. I thought it was a really good book. It was very intriguing. I was just turning the pages, like I was just going for it. So this book did come out this year, and it is free on Kindle Unlimited right now. You can also buy it on Kindle. You can probably find it at your library or a local bookstore. And if it is on Kindle, it's probably on iBooks as well. I didn't check iBooks. My iBooks app is kind of a mess. It doesn't always want to load, and it kills my phone. But I can definitely tell you that it's on Kindle. You can read reviews everywhere. I read about it on Goodreads and had already wanted to read it, and then it popped up on Kindle Unlimited. So I would definitely suggest this. I think it's really good. Nothing is overly like graphic or gory or anything like that. I do know that I mentioned that his parents were abusive, but he doesn't really get like very deeply into that. He deals more with like how he was dealing with that trauma. So if that will bother you, just know that that's a trigger warning. But there's nothing like overly graphic. They're not, it's not too much to read, but that is there. So keep that in mind. But yes, I definitely suggest this book. I think that it is important to read. It's not like anything that I would really normally pick up, but I think that it's always important to read stories about people who are different than you and people who have been able to overcome issues, which is why I'm saying that I suggest it. And like I said, it's an easy book to read. It's an easy book to get sucked into, even if it doesn't sound like it when I'm badly describing it. But yes, so 2021 5-star read, first book. I'm really hoping that that is a great like start to the year, and I am hoping to read at least 50 nonfiction books this year, and I'm hoping to read at least 5 classics. So you will definitely get a taste of some of those 50 nonfiction books and maybe some of the classics as well. We will see how that goes, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.